Nature of the government.
And it's in this.
It's just a regional. Yeah. It is a week. I thought it was 30.
Let me know and I'll
Old school dirt track. It was rain.
Okay, guys, you gotta turn your mics on. We'll be sure that they're pointing at you. All right, we want to call this meeting to order. Today is June 23rd, 2025. I'm gonna ask Councilman Sconiers here to lead us in the invocation. We'll follow the pledge of allegiance.
Dear Lord, we thank you for this day, and we thank you for all your many blessings, Father. Thank you for blessing our city and letting us flourish, God. We pray that you'll keep your hand on our citizens, Lord. Keep us safe. Keep your hand on first responders. Keep them safe. Keep them healthy while they're out there. Father, keep your hand on our soldiers and our troops overseas as these times are uncertain and very unstable, God. Bless our country. Bless us tonight, Lord, as we come to do your business, Lord, the will of the people. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. We will start, entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda as written.
So moved. Second.
All right, and so if any questions or anyone want anything pulled off to the regular agenda?
Mayor, just a note, Councilman Harrison got with me about some comments in the minutes. Raphael spoke with him, so he will take care of those if everyone's
Okay.
comfortable with that.
All right, anything else? All right, we are going to Glenn. All in favor, say aye.
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 Ayes carried, thank you very much. On the regular agenda, do we have any changes or deletions?
No, sir.
No, sir. Okay, we'd certainly entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and second. Any questions? All in favor, say aye.
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 Ayes carried, thank you very much. Now we'll go to 3C1, Mr. Covey with the financial audit.
Thank you, Mayor. So, Council, we have here with us today Purvis Gray, Megan and Ryan, the auditors for the city. They're going to here to give us an update on our hopefully getting this thing approved and completed on time this year for 2023, 2024. This is both the city and the CRA's audit, and I just want to say, they put in a lot of work. Danielle has done a tremendous job getting this for the city where we are today. So we thank all of them, and they're here to present.
Good evening, Mayor and members of the City Council. My name is Ryan Tucker. I'm a partner with Purvis Gray. I have Megan Camp with me. She was the audit director on the audit engagement, and we are pleased to bring to you the results of our audit for the fiscal year ended September 30th, 2024. There's been some significant progress, as was mentioned, that has been made this year. You may recall in the prior past couple of years, you've not been able to get the report finalized within the state's deadline of June 30th, but we're pleased to be able to do that here, as long as this gets approved tonight. There were 13 findings in the prior year's audit report, and 11 of those have been resolved. So there was significant progress. There are only 2 that remain that they are still working on. Whenever the city has a federal and state single audit, there's a kind of a one-page summary that if you turn to page 64 of the larger of the 2 reports, I'll just touch on a couple of things here. It's titled The Schedule of Findings and Question Costs. Under the financial statement section there at the top, you're receiving an unmodified opinion on the financial statements, which is the highest level of assurance that you can receive from a CPA firm. There were no material weaknesses in internal control or significant deficiencies identified during the course of our audit, and no non-compliance that was considered material to the financial statements. In terms of the federal single audit and state single audit, there were no material weaknesses or significant deficiencies over the major federal and state projects. No compliance matters identified, and the opinion on on the federal and state single audit was also unmodified. So this is one of the better reports that we will see. There were two major programs. One was federal and one was state, the coronavirus state and local fiscal recovery funds. We had to do some extra work on that. And then the aviation grant program, you spent about $1.6 million on that project during the course of that fiscal year. If you flip over to page 67, I mentioned there were two findings that still remain, and the first one is at the top of page 67, is about the water line loss. And we've noted from looking at some of the reports that y'all generate internally that the figures seem to be excessive in terms of the line loss. And so we're asking that you research this a little further to find out what might be causing it, or it could be something wrong with the reports that are being generated from the system. And then the second item there is in the middle of the page on the sanitation fund, having a reconciliation. We're requesting that a reconciliation be done from the amounts billed by Waste Management to the customers that are being served and billed to the customers of the city. And then also looking at the rate structure to make sure you're properly recovering those costs that you're paying to the waste hauler. And we talked with management about these two items, and they're working on them, and they've issued their response here on page 67. There is another separate letter. It's titled Communication with Those Charged with Governance. This kind of report on how the audit went. And one thing to mention here is that we had to implement a new accounting standard, GASB 100, accounting changes and error corrections. We did split out the airport fund from the general fund this year, so it's now a separate enterprise fund, which is most common in cities of this nature. And then we separated the water, sewer, sanitation, and gas funds from what was previously referred to as the utilities fund. So there's more information in this report than there has been in the past, but there's a disclosure in the notes about what we did to separate those items in note 1. There are some estimates in these financial statements that are described here, and we're comfortable with those estimates, or management's not taking any kind of aggressive position on those items. The financial statements are consistent and clear. There were no difficulties encountered during the performance of our audit. If we have what's called a past audit adjustment, we do have to disclose that, and there is one item. There was an unbilled amount from the attorney that became known to us late in the audit process. We did not book that into these financial statements. I think they're going to take a look at that and see what they want to do about that going forward into the new year. But it was not material to the financial statements. We just have to disclose those items here. And then there were no other disagreements with management or other findings or issues that we needed to bring to your attention. In terms of the CRA, I'll just mention we do issue a separate report on the CRA. And there were 3 findings in 2023. All of those were corrected. So you did receive an unmodified opinion on those financial statements as well. No significant deficiencies or material weaknesses. And you will be able to meet the deadline. There's some other disclosures in the management letter about CRAs that are required, and examination report in here. There really were no issues on the CRA's audit this year. So say congratulations and thank you to Danielle and the staff for all their cooperation during the course of our audit, and be glad to answer any questions you guys might have.
I just have a comment. I want to say thank you, Ryan, to you and your team, but especially to Danielle and our team here at the city, because just looking at where we were last year to where we've come to today, leaps and bounds difference from, I think it was a modified opinion to now an unmodified, which is the highest assurance that you can get. I want to thank you, Danielle, and your team, because that, with everything else that the city was facing and all the other things that we had to achieve with less staff, she's done a tremendous job. And thank you to you guys for working with her to accomplish this. And for us to be timely is volumes from where we
Huge.
started from. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
All right. Cover we need to approve.
I
Yes,
make a
Mayor,
motion
yes.
to recommend as provided.
Second.
We have a motion and second. Any questions from council? Any questions from anyone? All in favor, say aye.
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 Ayes, carry. Thank you very much. And, yeah, Danielle, we can't say enough about what you've brought up. All right, Kobe, we'll go to 3C2.
Thank you, Mayor. Mayor, this is RFP 2025-02 PW. This is a historic Walton Phoenix Library construction contract. This, if you all recall, we went out to bid for this. The council awarded this project to Diversified General Contractors LLC. We have, I told you we would meet with them, myself, the library director for the county, and the UWF Historic Trust. Went through the bid, talked to them about everything they were going to do, walked the building. They did give to us that they did not believe that their allocated amount for electrical was needed anymore after further discovery. And so that was originally $162,000 of the original bid. We have halved that because they don't feel it's necessary. I spoke to Mr. Atkins about it. He's seen that to be appropriate. And so the contract is in the amount of $361,790. And the council has allocated roughly $465,000 to this project. So it's about $103,000 surplus to it as right now, which is what we were after. We were after to have that difference, and so we could see what we would get into. Hopefully, we won't get into anything, but with it being such an old building. And so in the documents, they would start work 15 days after the signing of this and 120 days to complete. I spoke with the contractor. They have allocated 2 months to it, so we should hopefully be within that 2 to 3 month window. And so unless Mr. Atkins has something to say, I recommend we approve this contract to get this done.
Motion to approve contract.
Second.
Motion second. Any comments from the attorney?
None from me. Let's try to get it done this time.
Any questions? Any
A
questions?
question about
Yeah.
the grading on the side of the building, north side of the building. Right now, the ground level's at the base of the window, those windows. So I noticed in the contract that they're going to grade that down rather than dig it out, and remove the dirt away from the wall totally. But do you know, or have they said how far that grade will be below the windows, or is it?
He didn't give a specific number. They will grade it down. Part of it, they'll remove the dirt from the wall. They'll seal it, and they'll put on a water barrier on the whole side of the building. Grade it out. Where the air conditioners currently sit in the corner, that pad,
Right.
that'll be tore out. The air conditioner will be moved further up the hill, so it's not leaking into the building.
Yeah.
And that'll all play into, they will rip out the backside where the stairs are and that concrete pad. They'll tear all that out, re-level it so the water is actually draining properly, and then rebuild the staircase to perfectly historical. So it will all be great that way. In terms of the actual amount, he did not provide that to us.
I'm assuming it'll be lower than that window
Yes,
is now,
absolutely.
for sure. Yeah, okay. I was just curious about it.
Good evening, Mark Hambley, President of Friends of the Library. I want to thank everyone for their support in this important effort, to say the least. Kobe, the council, everyone. Just want you to know the bats are back. Unfortunately, we had a $14,000 effort which paid for by the county, which stepped in to remove that problem. But they always find a way of getting back till the roof's repaired. So the $130,000 surplus you may find, we're going to have to use some of that again to make sure this building is it's signed, sealed, delivered as we want. But thank you very much for your support.
Thank you very much. Okay. All right, Covey, anything needs to be said, I guess the contractor about that, you can,
Oh, absolutely. So the roof will be, it'll look similar, but it'll be metal. So hopefully and they're going to redo all of the facing and soft stuff. So we hopefully will not have that issue anymore. Hopefully we'll solve that permanently.
all right, thank you very much. Anyone else? All in favor, say aye.
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 Ayes, carried. Thank you very, very much. And we'll go to 3C3.
Thank you, Mayor. RFQ 2025-02CM, Strategic Planning Services. The council did narrow it down to 3 bidders, which was Raftellus, Ayers, and Solution Focused Culture. I have met with all 3 of those companies, listened to them, asked my questions, and at this time, I'm comfortable with recommending to the council that we move forward with Raftellus. If approved, I would bring back a contract, hopefully in the next meeting with that. So I'll work with them on the fee. They all assured me, especially Raftellus, that it would be within our budget. So I'll bring that back at our next meeting.
Motion to award strategic planning services to Raftellus.
Second.
All right, motion second. Questions or comments? Questions or comments from the public? All in favor, say aye.
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 Ayes, carry. Thank you very much. And now we'll go to 4.
Mayor, this is RFQ 2025-03PW, Engineering, Design, Permitting, and CEI for Wastewater Effluent Force Main Replacement Project. The council did elicit the RFP for this, RFQ for the design of this. And so awarded was to 3 Notch Group. They provide the contract to us. It has been reviewed by legal. And so the fee in that is $806,000. It's 2 parts. The first part is for the engineering, design, permitting, and bidding phase services in the amount of $482,000. You all recall we have a $300,000 grant from the Northwest Florida Water Management District to help with the design portion. The other $182,000 will come out of impact and capacity fees, depending on legal's approval of that or not. If not, it will come out of capacity fees. The other remaining $324,000 is for CEI services. We do not have the funding for that now, nor do we have all the funding for construction. So as we go through the design process, like we have done with many other projects, these engineers will help us with our SRF application. We will lean on Liberty Partners for grants and appropriations. And if you seen your update, we are currently $1 million in for the state budget, pending approval by the governor, hopefully. And then Tim's here, but Congressman Dunn did move forward our $3 million request, so hopefully that'll go through, at least a portion of that. And so as we move forward through the project, we'll submit to SRF, and that funding will come from those dollars. So we're just asking for approval of the contract with 3 Notch Group for the engineering, design, permitting, and CEI for wastewater effluent force main replacement project.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion second. Any questions, comments from anyone?
Covey,
Go ahead.
yeah, did we get any clarification on that 3.01 part of the contract about a reasonable time?
Mr. Rollins is here. Mr. Rollins, you mind coming up real quick?
I got Blake, one of our project engineers, with me as well. What was the question? I'm sorry.
Well, the contract said, wait, let me open it real quick. I feel like you have it as 3.01.
It's a 3.01 schedule for rendering services. Section A, engineers shall complete its services within a reasonable period of time.
Right. So are you referring to the design portion or are you looking at the CEI portion?
I'm talking, well, whatever that refers to.
Okay.
So-
Yeah, I mean, Blake, what was our timing for the design? Do you remember what we had kind of set for?
The construction was based on 12 months.
Yeah.
Timeline.
12-month timeline for construction, and then design would take,
Yeah, probably depending on permitting, 6 to 9 months.
there you go, 6 to 9 months because of permitting, and then about a year for the construction part.
And our goal would be to be within June 30th of 2026, because the Water Management District grant expires on 6/30/26. Obviously, we could always ask for extension, but we we'd rather not. So
Right.
that would be the goal, is
Yeah.
definitely within the year.
And we talked with Kobe about that.
Yeah.
Before we even sent him this contract, so.
Well, that was just my kind of
Yeah.
concern. I know there's timelines associated with this, and that was just vague as far as what a reasonable period of time is.
Right.
So, okay.
You think?
You know what? Okay.
Thank you.
Any other
Thank
comment?
you.
Any other comment? All in favor, say aye.
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 Ayes, carried. Thank you very much. Kobe, I guess we'll go to SCADA. ITB.
Thank you, Mayor. SCADA ITB 2025-05 PW. Council, we went out for this a few months back now. We received one bid from Hydro Service in the amount of $395,530. You all indulge me and continue it to the next meeting for me to do a little more information gathering and research. From that, I'm just 100% there's conflicting information, right? There's so many different ways to go about this type of system. I do believe that this is something that is significant to the city. I believe it's something we need to address immediately to ensure that we don't have spills and that we're protecting our services and our citizens. So with that and the information I've gathered, I would recommend we move forward with this to get this done. This would come out of capacity fees. So the capacity fees are paid for by developers. And so it would have a reduced operating cost to us on an annual basis. So that's my recommendation to you. I'm open to any questions or discussion on that. But that's what I've come to.
Questions?
Mr. Mayor.
Go ahead.
Kobe, can you, you and I had a conversation about this on Friday in our meeting. Are you able to elaborate on what had kind of come to light that has made you make the recommendation to proceed with the ITB
Mhm.
and the award?
So through research, the various other ways of doing it, other companies provide the hardware at a cheaper rate, right?
Right.
But there is extensive data costs along with that, similar to what we were paying for previously. We would do it a little different than we were, but it would have a new additional operating cost to the city every year versus the bid that was provided. So looking at it again from that upfront perspective, right? There is that cost, it's a large portion up front, but the operating cost will be minimal versus another way of going is a minimal upfront cost, but over year annual operating. One of the things we talked about, and that is these capacity fees are from developers, where those operating costs are from our revenues every year in the utility fund. So looking at all those factors and the data in which is used to operate them, looking at it in the situation we're in, that's how I come to my decision.
Any other questions, comments?
Motion to approve the SCADA ITB and award.
Second.
Any comments, questions, from anyone? All in favor, say aye.
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 Ayes, carried. Thank you very much. And now we'll go to the lift station review.
Thank you, Mayor. This is lift station review and assessment. Well, it would have been roughly 4 months now. So the council had direct staff to bring back in 90 days. Assessment and review of the differences between our current lift stations and the tech manual. We brought that. We continued to this meeting due to the length of the last one. And so you'll see on there a short description from Kyle Jacobs, kind of the differences between our stations and what the tech manual require, and then an assessment of our current stations in terms of the pumps, the panels, the bypass pumps, the wet well, how many is required there, how many are currently there. And so there's that assessment. So bringing that back for discussion on what the council would like to do. And the conversation had originally generated from starting to replace pumps and panels at the stations. And should we start replacing what's currently there and how it's currently configured, or should we start to upgrade it based off the tech manual? So I think that's kind of where we're at.
So again, you and I had extensive discussions on this Friday. I'm at the point where I think we, instead of doing the kind of one size fits all of saying, okay, if we're going to upgrade a station, we need to apply the tech manual, right? Because at that point, we're going to have every single lift station out there be a Cadillac lift station. And in kind of going over some of the details with Kobe on Friday, I believe that maybe we should ask staff to come back with recommendations and maybe classify the lift stations based on some sort of appropriate category. And for me, in my simple understanding of it, we have some lift stations that are on the outer edges. They're only collecting from, some homes, and then they're pumping. But then we have lift stations that pump to other lift stations. An example of that would be out at Best Western. We have Best Western, the lift station at Best Western, which I was told could actually outpump the actual treatment plant. It's actually capable of overflowing the treatment plant with its capabilities. So I really think that we should look at each of these lift stations and maybe classify them, and then say, okay, if the lift station is a secondary lift station, it's not a primary lift station, whatever the case may be, come up with some sort of method for identifying these lift stations and saying, this is deficient and we need to have it replaced. But we're not necessarily bringing it up to the tech manual's standards that we would for a brand new lift station that may be going into a subdivision somewhere. Case in point is the lift station that's right here behind us. It needs work, but we don't necessarily need to apply the tech manual to it. The lift station out there at Best Western is another good example of where we applied the appropriate resources to that lift station to bring it up to where we needed it to be. But my understanding is we have other lift stations that need that same sort of forward thinking on, but not necessarily a one size fits all of the tech manual. So that's kind of where I sit on, is that we really should ask staff to maybe come back with some sort of what they started here with a grading system. Like, we've identified deficiencies, but let's come back with like a smart plan for these lift stations, need to be upgraded because they support other lift stations, et cetera.
Amy?
I'm not sure what kind of ranking system you want to use, but whatever they do come back with, let's task them with also make sure at least by volume is there, whatever's running through by volume, and the number of households it
Yes, sir.
serves, because I think those two things will give us a lot of data that we would do. So whatever we choose, let's add those two criteria, please.
Yeah, I think that's a good segue into something that I had mentioned to Kobe. For years we have kind of danced around the idea of maybe doing a master plan for our sewer system. My understanding is we have a water model, but we don't have a sewer model. So having a sewer model would actually help us make some educated decisions on these lift stations. So maybe this is the starting point for us tasking staff with going out and doing a ITB on a sewer master plan that comes back and gives us a complete inventory, and then makes recommendations and actually kind of gives us a long-term plan for how we are going to address not only the current deficiencies, but maintenance. Obviously you can't run a pump for forever. So at some point you've got to replace it. And here's the schedule in which you should be anticipating replacing pumps, et cetera.
I agree.
Yeah, and Kobe, if you just sort of, for the public's sake, the difference between a tech setup versus one that was done for a small neighborhood. In other words,
Differences between
three-phase,
tech manual.
much larger
Oh,
pumps.
yeah. Well, I don't know if I don't know if I can speak to the exact difference in the power part of it, but the tech manual is written in which developers come in. We are requiring them to put in a very good system, very jam up, top of the line. That is if they're going to give it to the city. If they're going to eventually ask the city to take it over, we require them to put in very good systems and equipment. If they're not going to give it to the city, they don't particularly have to put in that system. Their system does still have to function properly, be checked, inspected, and ensured that it works. But if I don't know that we have put in a lift station since I've been in the city, so I'm unaware of how we internally follow the process. I think that's what Councilman Beerbaum was getting at. Not only the upgrade portion of like lift station 9, but when we go to build a new one, taking into account the factors that Councilwoman spoke about the households, the flows, or what size pumps are needed, what size wet well, the panels associated with it, and so forth, would be kind of what Councilman Beerbaum was talking about. But the tech manual is specifically for developments and what they are required to put in.
Yeah. So there's a big cost difference,
Yes.
and for no good reason.
Yep.
So now in the future, we probably won't do these little bitty, some of these were done sort of out of ignorance, but they're there. And there's no sense turning it into a Cadillac when Volkswagen can be just fine. Yes, ma'am.
I just want to say I like his idea about getting a master plan, because I think otherwise we're always running blind, and I can't stand it. 1 week we'll have something before us because it's problematic, but if we could just get coordinated enough to where we could get a plan together. I think all of us here want to see infrastructure bettered, but we're all kind of going off in little directions, not on purpose, but because we don't have such a guide. And I like that idea.
So we have, I know Randall, utility superintendent, has reached out to Florida Rural Water and CERCAP, which are, regional or statewide service for that. And so we reached out to them to see if they'd be willing to do that and what service they provide in that capacity. It would be free to the city as a service. We're going to see what that looks like, what that may turn and materialize for the city. If it's something that we feel is good for the city, then we may move forward. If not, we'll reach out to our engineers and see what they can provide to us in such a master plan.
So do you have a motion needs to be made?
No, it seems like the general direction is for staff to bring back basically a guide for internal guide for lift stations and replacement.
You go ahead.
So new lift stations would be by the tech manual, is that correct?
That are
Well-
provided by the contract.
Yeah, so the
If
tech
by the
manual,
So if we had to put one in, we wouldn't necessarily go by,
I can't tell you if we have or have not in the past because
Okay.
since I have worked for the city, we have not put a new one in ourselves.
I think it's a great idea to do what you're talking about, Councilman Beerbaum, and there's some things that I noticed though about what the tech manual requires, like surge protectors, and I don't think any of them have them. And so what popped in my mind at that point was insurance, lightning strikes. Would our insurance cover that damage if we don't have surge protectors on these systems? So that's a tech manual requirement that we have not done, and this goes back a long time, but I don't know about the insurance aspect of it, but that's what popped in my mind, whether they could, not pay a claim, on something like that. So I just like us to think about that. Let's see. Fences. Is that a tech manual requirement?
Not, it should be.
I'm not sure if it is, but a lot of these stations I noticed on Kyle's assessment sheet, which is fantastic, by the way. I don't know if he's here tonight. But they all need fences just to prevent, vandalism and that kind of stuff for sure. But I think we made good progress on these according to that chart. I mean, we have very little critical in the lower half. We've got 40 lift stations, and the bottom half from I forget what number, from 18 through 40. There's very few critical. It's all in good shape. So, we're making some progress here. But I think it's a great idea to find out, get some direction at this point, because we got a lot of money to spend here for sure.
Is Kyle in the house?
I didn't see him.
Jacobs? Okay, that's fine.
Mayor,
Go ahead.
the additional information you're asking, is that focusing specifically on the lift stations and lift stations alone, or does it include any of the antiquated sewage system, the pipes?
Well, I think the master plan would include the piping
Okay.
and inventory of our pipe. But to me, I think what I'm asking for immediately is for the staff to basically take the spreadsheet that's before us and kind of reclassify it and then come up with a plan for ABC categories or ABCD or whatever staff thinks is appropriate for us to, as a council, to kind of chew on and say, we want to prioritize this in redoing it. But I think that the master plan that I think we should really go out to bid for would address what you're talking about.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so what do you need, Kobe?
I think I have general direction to bring something back.
Okay. All right. Any other comments or questions? We'll move on then. All right, we'll go to the public hearing ordinance.
Yes, sir, Mayor. This is the second reading and public hearing for adoption for the Chapter 11 Code Enforcement Review. You saw it at your previous meeting, and we are now before you seeking to hold that second reading, public hearing, and to adopt.
So moved.
Second.
All right, I have a motion and a second. Any questions? Comments from anyone? All in favor, say aye.
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 Ayes, carry.
Ordinance number 987, Mr. Eichelson.
Ordinance number 987, ordinance of the city of Union Springs, Florida, repealing and replacing ordinance 909 in part, thereby amending chapter 11 code enforcement of the city of Union Springs Code of Ordinance in its entirety. Thank you, Mayor. That is now adopted and becomes law.
Thank you very much. All right, we got the request to be on the agenda, Samantha Smith, JMT.
Good evening, Mayor, council members of the public. I'm pleased to bring to you tonight a set of draft standards that we've been working on with our consultant, who's actually Samantha here in the audience, who will be giving the presentation. But this was a result of our redevelopment plan update that we did back in 2023. That was a recommendation the consultant provided in that particular plan, and then meeting with Ford Defuniak, we discovered that they are actually trying to craft some historic standards that were tailored toward our districts. But we're striking out with trying to, borrow some from this site, borrow some from that city or whatever. So in any case, we hired JMT back in November of last year. During the week of January 26th, they were here for a kickoff meeting. And tonight they're here to kind of showcase the very rough draft standards. Again, the very start of something to come. We have a public workshop tomorrow night where we'll be presenting the same standards to the public at large, and then again on Wednesday before our CRA board. The goal tonight is just to get this information out there to the council with an open invitation to get your input on this. Definitely expect to have a lot of revisions. What we have tonight is more or less a generalization of the standards based off of the Department of Interior national standards. So we want to make these tailored toward our community. And so that's what we're here to do tonight. So with that, I'm going to ask Samantha to come up here and go over
Well,
the presentation.
Let's make it real clear, when and where? Tomorrow,
It's at Stockholm Hollow Brotherhood at 5 p.m.
5 p.m., okay, sir.
All right. Thank you, Josh. My name is Samantha Smith, and I work with JMT. So I'm just going to give a brief overview of the first draft we've been producing the last few months, and what are like next steps and more about us and such. So myself and my colleague Carolyn were here in January. We're both architectural historians with JMT on their cultural resources team. We've worked on a number of design guidelines or design standards across the country. Our company itself is primarily engineering, but it's multidisciplinary. Again, it includes cultural resources, architectural historians, archaeologists, as well as planners and architects and designers. So some of the previous work, we've worked in Maryland, we've worked in Iowa, we've worked on design guidelines in Titusville, Florida, as well as Tarpon Springs, and then all the way up to Wisconsin, just to name a few. A brief overview, if anyone's unfamiliar, what are design standards? So these are a set of standards that would be adopted to guide rehabilitation, new construction, and additions on historic structures within a locally designated historic district. The goal being to preserve for the future the visual elements to maintain integrity. Each city has its own history, and part of that is visual. So to preserve for future generations. So on top of that, they also provide a basis for making fair decisions, consistency in design review. At this time, that would be the planning director, any other future entity as well. Incentives for investment, property value enhancement, and preservation education. So again, these should be used as a framework to evaluate the appropriateness of proposed exterior work. So again, just exterior, this is not interior, and these are buildings within your historic districts. So Josh kind of gave this introduction already, but we were contracted by the CRA and the CRA board to construct some design standards for the residential and commercial properties within your 3 historic districts. So I'm sure you all know, but here's some maps of the districts. So also acknowledging that the Defuniak Springs Historic District is also a National Register district. Then your evolving downtown business district that overlaps it, as well as the Dorsey Avenue Historic District. So how do we go about developing these? We were here in January. We did a survey of the districts. We talked to a number of property owners and stakeholders just to get a sense of what they're looking for, some reservations, some recommendations. We've since reviewed all of our imagery to produce what are common building forms as well architectural styles within all the districts. Then we reviewed your history of your districts, of the city, even like the Florida Building Code, your ordinance. So we've reviewed all that, compiled it together, and used the Secretary of Interior standards for the treatment of historic properties as a foundation, and that's standard across the country, while also utilizing the standards for rehabilitation, which are especially necessary if a property, especially a commercial property, is looking to use federal grants or funding. So in all of that, we decided it made the most sense to actually create 3 documents, one for each of the districts. Obviously, a residential property within Dorsey is very different than Definiak Springs Historic District, as well as a commercial building in Dorsey and the Downtown Business District. So just to make it as user-friendly as possible, a property owner would just need to know where their building's located, and if it's residential or commercial. So all of them are organized the same way. So I will go through more of this tomorrow at the meeting. And again, this is evolving, but the end goal would be the final document could be interactive. And so a more advanced property owner or architect looking to do a new fence, they can just click fencing. And all of the verbiage is also referenced to different diagrams as well as the ordinance. So again, that should be together. So it's just putting a lot of information in one place. Another big thing that is important about design standards are visuals. So obviously a lot of this text is found in the ordinance, but there's no pictures, and a lot of people are visual learners. So we developed a set of even color coordination with levels of appropriateness. This is corresponding to diagrams as well. We also have a lot of imagery found both within the district as well, or all the districts, and then some bad examples from places across the country. So no one will see their building in these documents. Yeah. So here's another example of the importance of creating 3 separate documents. These diagrams show appropriate and not acceptable setbacks, orientation, and alignment within all 3 districts. So as you can see, very, very different building types and forms. So this is just a representation of, this makes all these concepts easily digestible for the layperson. We've produced flowcharts that go through the design review process, as well as QR codes that link directly to the certificate of appropriateness. Here's some example pages for our building forms architectural section that'll help the property owner figure out what their building style is, to know what character defining features would be appropriate to preserve. That'll help the integrity of the larger district. Here's some more pages, just again, showing the organization of our larger chapter of standards. We provide references to National Park Service preservation links, as well as diagrams and imagery. And then we even have sections on storefronts. So in this is examples, upper facade information, more information on the location of additions. The appendices also provides a variety of information. Well, like one of the main comments we heard from stakeholders was just putting everything in one place. So a lot of links are in here, both like state of Florida links, Definiak Springs, all the preservation briefs are here. And then funding resources are also here, from state and federal to the CRA grants. So again, kind of all in one place. Another comment we also received was maybe making a page about like frequently asked questions within a historic district. So this could be taken out, this could be given to realtors, they could hand it to new property owners. It could be sent to all the property owners just to remind them, like, you do fall under the ordinance and this is important to protect our community and for the future generations to come. So as Josh said, what's next? This is a first draft, and it's a very rough draft. It's a lot of information that we're looking for community input. We understand each community, each city is very different. So we would like participation to know what we are producing will be actually helpful. We don't want to make a document that no one's going to use or touch. So we will be at Chautauqua Hall Brotherhood tomorrow at 5 p.m. to go over a little bit more about all the documents. Here is my contact information, as well as my senior Carolyn's. We're both out of town, so please feel free to email. We can set up a call. We would just like participation for the future to keep working on these and produce something that's helpful. So
Awesome.
that's it.
So give us just a real quick brief. What do you plan to, how are you gonna run through it tomorrow night?
So I have a pretty similar presentation, but I also have some printed out papers. I'm going to go through, I can like pull the actual documents, go through them a little bit more intensely so that people can ask, what does that mean? Or I know there's been specific standards people have a lot of concerns about, so address those concerns. And all the standards are available on the city's website, so that can also be viewed at the moment. So we're diving into specifics tomorrow.
Y'all have any questions?
Yes, sir. Got some questions and some comments. Has this been or will it be presented to the planning board?
I'm not sure.
Okay. Has this been or will it be presented to the code review and land use committee?
It most certainly can.
Okay. Has Main Street been involved?
We actually have a meeting with Main Street tomorrow.
Okay. I'm going to channel my inner McKnight here for a second.
Uh-oh.
McKnight love props. This is the physical representation of it. It's 509 pages. 509 pages of code of telling people what they can and can't do with their property. I have serious concerns about overreach. I hate to have to do this in a public meeting like this, but unfortunately, the way that this is all scheduled out, this is kind of one of my only opportunities to put some of the things on the record. I see, I guess, first and foremost, there's an extreme amount of duplication between the three documents. This could easily be reduced down by 90% to probably 50 pages or less. There's also just very basic errors in this document or in these documents. As an example, referring to our business district, which is a district. It's not an overlay. It is constantly referred to as an overlay in here. There's lots of references, and this is something that, having walked through this, not only in rewriting the charter, but in working through code, and the committee that I chair is working through rewriting a lot of our code. One of the things that we seek to remove out of code are references that will quickly become stale. So that in every one of these documents, there's references to code that we really should just say, go here. See this statute, see these design documents, go to the National Park Service. I'm not sure why it's pertinent to put in a design guideline, the entire history of our city. For a guideline, it just seems superfluous. There's again a lot of things in here that I think go way too far. There's appendices regarding flooding. I checked the FEMA map today. There's not a single flood zone besides the lake itself in our historic district. So I'm not sure why there's over 6 pages dedicated to flooding. This is supposedly just guidelines, but yet all throughout the document, there's references to shall be, shall not be. That there are a lot of handcuffs placed on property owners on what they can and can't do. If you were to do what this manual says, which is have the city planner interpret everything based off of this guide, this effectively becomes law. So I have serious concerns about basically it telling you what you've got to use. Who's going to certify that a door or a window is old growth lumber? How are you going to get that? There's issues around, I think at one point it was referencing that it should be locally made. I don't know anywhere around here that makes windows, that makes doors. Hardly anything is actually made locally besides professional products. And that's certainly not going to be stuff we put on a building. Again, I really do think that this could be distilled down into less than 50 pages. I really do believe that what this document should do is lay out the groundwork for here's what is in our districts. Here's what you can build that looks like this. Look to your left, look to your right. As on the Code Review and Land Use Committee, we have openly discussed this about doing form-based code. And to me, this should reflect that. This should reflect all the discussions that we've had over the past 2 years about form-based code. because that's where we were driving before this popped up. There's references to ADA, numerous references to ADA in here. Number one, first and foremost, I think that's, again, repetitive. Everybody knows they have to comply with ADA if you're building a new building. But again, ADA also deals with interior. She just said it doesn't deal with interior, but yet it talks about elevators, et cetera. There's references to how we need to bring in utilities. On my building in particular that's downtown, they originally brought my utilities all the way to the front of the building. Well, this guide says that that's not right. But if we want to follow this guide to do historic preservation, should I bring the utilities back to the front of the building or not? There's a lot of contradiction there. As an example, my building downtown has been reconfigured at least 3 separate times. The facade that you see on the side as well as the front has been completely reconfigured in its 100-year history. So which one of those am I allowed to go back to? Because this references that I'm allowed to go back to original openings, but I've got 3 different versions. Which one do I go to? There's a lot of ambiguity in this that I think could be simplified and made digestible for the layperson. So again, 509 pages of rules and regulations. In my 6 years of being on the council, I've yet to have anyone beg me to write 509 pages worth of rules and regulations for the city. If anything, they're telling me to reduce red tape. So I have real concerns I want to put on the record about this being an overreach, if it's even accepted. And then Chris would have the feeling that he needs to somehow comply with these guidelines. So.
Mayor?
And I could probably go on with some more specific examples.
Let them respond to that if they want to, and then you can.
Yeah, I'll just add, I appreciate your comments and certainly appreciate your input. That's exactly, why we're here today, is to get those comments. And if, the document that they have presented is significantly different than what the council would like, by all means, we're here to make this work for this community. As far as the history is concerned, one of the conversations that we've had numerous times with a lot of the public is the lack of understanding of the historic significance of the original Chautauqua district. And so we felt like it would be important to explain kind of the reason why it is important to preserve that historic district, and explaining it, we thought would be a good segue into that. But I completely respect and appreciate your input. I think we're trying to put together a document that A, will be well received by the public, B, will be illustrative. Now we have a certificate of appropriateness that can be subjective at times. And so this was an exercise to try to make it more objective, to give some flexibility, to give some illustrations on what we're looking for as far as, improvements or new construction perhaps. And so, at the end of the day, this is a growing document, a changing document, and we can make it into whatever this council would like. But this is kind of what they put together, which is why we want to go ahead and get this out here in front of the council so we can get this input before we go too much further down the path. Because if it's significantly, different than what you had envisioned, then let's not spend a whole lot of time with this document. Let's start over perhaps and bring something back that would be more suited for this council.
Yeah.
Is this agenda item for informational purposes only, or is
It
this
is.
to take
It's
action?
information.
Okay.
Yeah. Just a presentation of information.
Any other comments from the audience?
In light of their presentations to planning, code and land use review, CRA, and our waiting on the governor to make his final decision on Senate Bill 180, certainly don't need to take any action, but let them work through, and we'll see how all of those things shake out.
One more question,
Yeah.
Mayor. Would this require a significant increase on Chris's workload? Would this be the responsibility of the city?
If passed, yes.
And we're under a hiring freeze. Okay, thank you.
Okay, so any other comments?
No, thank you for your time.
Okay, well, thank you very much. I know you got to put a lot of hard work into it, and like you got a little bit more to do.
Yep, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
May I ask a question?
Certainly, come on.
Excuse me, Kim Winterberg. I'd like to know, did I understand correctly that this is on the website, on the city's website?
It's kind of hard to find, but yes, it's under.
Okay, because
under
I've been
this-
looking
the-
on
the
here
CRA
and I can't
website.
find it.
Yeah.
Okay,
If
so
you go to
it's,
the CRA page, there should be a link on the left side that talks about the design guidelines, and then from there you can
Okay.
see all three of the documents.
And if you
Okay.
go to tonight's agenda, it is linked on the agenda.
okay. And then my next question would be, and I guess it would be more for Josh and Samantha. How is this being advertised to the public for them to know that this is going on? Because outside of the agenda, I hadn't seen anything.
Okay.
Yes, we actually advertised this in the Funiac Herald 3 consecutive weeks. We also advertised it on Facebook. I believe Ford of Funiac sent out quite a bit of information about it as well. So that's how we've advertised that.
All right. Thank you very much. All right. Well, we'll move on and we'll go to John Gillespie, Bestcom Builders.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council, and the public. I'm back to talk about the Village Springs project just because the last time I was here, there seemed to be a little bit of confusion. So I just want to give a brief overview. I'm not asking for the council to do anything at this moment. It's just to clear up, the public record and go through the timeline since a lot of people weren't here during the initial stages. I know Mr. Atkinson, Beerbaum, and the mayor were here, but so basically, I've come in as the contractor in August. Nothing official yet until everything's turned over, but I've been working with the city since August. Go back through the history, fix all the problems that were brought up in the past. I've done extensive research. Read all the communication between the city, the previous contractor, of what the problems were to try to resolve those and get the project moving forward again. This big picture, it's still going to be funded by Florida Housing for affordable housing. So I'm not, doing anything different than that. We're just basically continuing the project from where it left off. The history, I've included some attachments there, but basically, whatever process was followed back when the development order was issued for engineering review, that went through planning, went through the city council, was all unanimously approved for the project to start. The DO did include the 3 conditions of replacing the old sewer line, upgrading the existing lift station to accommodate, and then granting the 20-foot easements for utilities. Following the DO issuance, substantial construction commenced. About $4 million was put into the project. So from 2018 until August, essentially, of last year when I stepped in, I have a brief timeline there. I'm not going to go through everything, but there's a lot of problems with the developer and going back and forth with the city. One of the main issues is, you guys talked about tonight, was this lift station. And, you guys are even a little bit up in the air about how, this should proceed, because the lift station is a city lift station. And, the developer was supposed to upgrade the existing. Well, there's a lot of confusion over that term. Do we put a Cadillac one in? That's what the city wants. And, the developer was saying, well, to upgrade it, we would meet these requirements. So there's a lot of gray area, but unfortunately, there's an active sewer line that runs right to the middle of the project. So until that was cleared up, I've read emails where they've had approvals and the city manager, was changed out. So he had to restart the process. There's a little bit of, problems on both sides, obviously, because of the way it's funded. You typically build the infrastructure first, but he was building the buildings first, and it was causing erosion problems and access problems, and which led to multiple stop work orders back and forth. There was some easement issues where the city was installed stuff on private property. They were using private property access. They didn't know that they had an easement, which has now been resolved, which ultimately led to the final stop work order in 2021. And that's when Brian Smith, which GHD Development, walked away from the project, leaving it in the hands of the bank, the nonprofit, and we're at where we are now. Now in 2021, that's when he walked away. They tried to get the bond to pay. There were some issues with the issuance of the bond. From the, it goes deep into the contractor, but essentially they, couldn't finish because they didn't have a plan to finish, and there's a lot up in the air still. Now Northwest Florida Water Management did, put a petition of enforcement against GHD, and he was communicating with them. They had to do a new stormwater plan, which was approved in 2022. And basically part of that plan was that they were going to do the remediation for the problems that happened on the site. So like I said, I've stepped in August. I've been talking with the city on a continuous basis, trying to get all the problems resolved so we can just start with a clean slate and basically start and get this project finished. A lot of the utilities were installed. All the buildings that are constructed are going to be the final buildings. We're not constructing new buildings because there was 3 buildings that were partially built that we demolished those, and we're just going to go with the ones that are built right now. So the project is pretty close to getting finished. It's just working out the problems that were the past. That's why I approached the city last time, because this lift station, basically the development did account for about 10% of the capacity of that lift station. So, talking with, Kobe and stuff, they, because they want the Cadillac lift station. And that was one of the things, well, maybe they could do a cost sharing because it's already an existing lift station. It's not a new development lift station. So we were going to pay for a majority of it, the state essentially, and then work out a cost sharing agreement. After that last meeting, because there's confusion about the upgrade existing versus, brand new. So that was always the contention point. But talking with Kobe some more, it would just take way too long to do a cost sharing agreement and send it out for bid. So I was able to adjust the budget to, basically that we're going to be in control of upgrading that lift station to new, right now we're designing it to the tech standard. So it's going to be pretty much a Cadillac lift station. And talking with Jacobs and the city, exactly how they want it, that's what we're going by with the design. So that will be coming across here pretty soon because we didn't, it took several months to get that through the city of what they wanted. Because if we wait for the cost sharing, it could be a year or so down the road before something's even started, and that would not make the project viable because it's viable now, but the longer it sits there, it's deteriorating, and there's constant maintenance to keep the erosion under control. So we really need to try to get it, finished quickly. So basically that cost sharing idea was scrapped. Talk to the state. We can find a little bit of the extra funding to get that lift station under control. Going back to the last meeting, there was some confusion on some items. I think about the impact fees not being paid. Those were fully paid back in 2021. For 50 units. Now we're only building 39. I know that the developer did kind of wait to pay him for some reason. I'm not sure why, but those were paid. The city, in between the 2021 and now, they've figured out that they have actually a right of way on Lincoln Avenue where there are sewer lines, electric, gas that the city's using right now to access the lift station. Before they were using private property. So obviously when the building started going up, there was a confusion on how the lift station was being accessed, but that's currently how it's being accessed now and how it will be in the future. As far as what the city's getting, I think they're getting a really good deal. One, they're getting affordable housing, for the community. that old sewer line, it's at least 80 years old, the old terracotta sewer line. And when they installed it, there was no permanent roads. It was on basically dirt. So over time, it became very brittle because a lot of it was exposed to the elements. That's why it kept breaking, because the sewer line should go underneath the road, but this one was installed pretty much on raw dirt. There's a lot of it exposed. From reading past history about that, that's what the problem was. But there's a sewer line, a brand new sewer line already in place. And if you go by the site, you can see where it's waiting to be connected at the road. They were just waiting for the details on, getting that lift station. So, that sewer line will be completely gone, the old one, and the new one, as soon as we can get the release of the stop work order, that would be the first thing that'll be taken care of. Florida Housing did last Friday commit to the additional funds based on, all the work that we've made to resolve a lot of the problems. So, that's a very hard thing to get, and they were very hesitant about doing it, but this is the viability to get the project completed. Other than that, it's been a little bit slow, working with some of the outside agencies and stuff like that, getting answers from them. I know the city and Kobe's doing the best that they can. Dewberry has been real slow about, when we came in, there was an approved set of plans for the DO. They wanted some changes to update what got missed on the original approval, which was fine. And we agreed to do that. But it was very minimal stuff on the stuff that was not built. And I just think they've, been a little bit excessive in their review process because they've had it since January. I also put in there, remember at the last meeting, they said we didn't submit some items. That was from Dewberry. And I went line by line. It's an attachment there, how we did submit all that information to them. So that was incorrect. And right now, we resubmitted the third set of round of plans to Dewberry on June 2nd. And I think the guy went on vacation for 2 weeks, and he said he was going to have it back to us at the end of last week. I emailed, called. I was hoping something for this meeting would be available, but I haven't heard anything back from them because I know Chris was out of town last week also. And the other issue is, I'm going to have to go talk to the magistrate because code enforcement has basically a lien on the property, and they want the lien to be released when all the buildings are complete. Well, we can complete the buildings when we have permits and follow the normal course of construction. So I got to talk to the magistrate about that. And I think there's a little bit of confusion, but for right now, we're keeping the site, pretty clean, graded as much as we can, but we really just need to get in there and get all the infrastructure done and, the paving to get this project completed. And, we're going to work hard to get it complete. The longer it sits, the more of a problem it
I think Amy
becomes.
had a question for you.
Actually, it's just a comment. I think he cleared it up. So there's nothing you're waiting for on us. We've resolved whatever it was at the last meeting. I understand you're only waiting on to have some review back from Dewberry. Is that accurate now?
At this time, the city wants to have an approved set of final plans. And Dewberry is, since they're the city engineer, we're waiting on them to give that back to
Mr. Mayor,
lift
can I
the
ask
stop work order.
Kobe, Kobe, what is a reasonable amount of time if he submitted them on June 2nd? Because this is only the 23rd, so that's only less than 3 weeks.
So we spoke to Rudy and Alex earlier today, and they plan to have them done by the end of the week. Again, Alex was out of town. I think he was out of the country last week and a half or week or so. So that was our conversation then this morning.
Thank you. I appreciate that follow-up. So
Yeah, and
sounds
it
like
was-
we're all on our way
Yeah,
then,
it's
and
close.
we're good. You're good with the city. Everybody's responding now, and
Yeah,
we
I just
appreciate your
wanted to-
update. Thank you so much for
Okay.
updating us all.
It seemed
Let me
like,
ask, Michael, on the right of way, has that been cleared up, the utility right of way? I was just talking about as far as the property itself. Was it on private or?
No, that's a city right of way.
Excuse me.
So,
The access that we're using right now, for the lift station is in a private access easement that was granted back in the 30s. I believe I've got a copy of it, with the legal description. It splits. I believe there's 10 feet on their property and there's 10 feet on the property to the south, but it is not city right of way. It is simply a access easement to that lift station. And we have gotten approval from DEP and Northwest Florida Water Management to make improvements to that drive down there, to add some aggregate just to stabilize it, because I know the trucks were getting stuck on a pretty regular basis. So that's
Behind
one
the
thing that
trucks.
we would like to have.
I remember driving down there with Stuart when he was here, and I was afraid we were gonna get stuck going down in. It's so
Well,
porous,
and usually
sandy.
when they're down there
I was like, there's no
is
way we're getting.
in the middle of the night, because we've gotten 2 inches of rain,
Yeah.
which makes it worse. So yeah,
Has
that is
has any of
something
that
we'd
loose
like.
soil been improved upon throughout this whole time? Because it still looked pretty sandy the last time I drove by.
Yeah, not much. I mean, they've done a better job of doing some erosion control and things like that, but, yeah, it still needs a lot of stabilization for sure.
It's good to hear they're still moving forward, Mr. Mayor.
Hey, we're making progress. We're getting
Yes,
there.
Thank you for the update.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, thank you very much. So you're hoping you're about to line things up with Dewberry?
Yeah, I just, I know Chris has been working good with me and stuff, so we're just waiting on Dewberry. Because we originally did submit the plans back in, late January. So nothing has really changed that much about the plans. I think they're pointing some new things out that were on the original set, but I'm hoping this latest revision, they don't have any more comments, because we've, gone back and forth. And, the problem is it's because the site is so unstable. That's why there's a little bit of more urgency, because of, basically you do all the planning, then you start the construction. Well, this is halfway through, so that's why there's a little bit of more pressure. But I appreciate the city doing as much as they can. The other thing I wanted to point out was the easements. Those have been sent multiple times, all the way back from 2018, to grant those to the city. I know Mr. Atkinson, I'd sent him and Kobe easements to grant those to the city. So I'm not sure who's in charge of that process or what else needs to be done, so those can get, granted as per part of the development order.
We typically don't record those easements until the development order is final, meaning you've done what you're supposed to do. The city's not going to take something that it's going to then be used against us to say, well, we gave you an easement, if the city ultimately feels like it's going to have to cancel the development order or terminate it. And that's what we told their attorney back when they communicated with us many years ago, was the city does want the easements, but at the same time, the city's not going to place itself in a position where it says we accepted the benefit of a bargain, and now we have to go through something when they're not doing it. Our ability to rescind the DO or issue stop work orders are our teeth to get this thing done correctly. We don't need the easements. We need the project finished.
Yep, and that's what I'm here to try to do. Yeah, so that's fine. If that's the process, then we can go with that. I just send them out and don't get a response, so I don't know if that's something the city's waiting for.
Well, it's not something we're waiting on. That's not a holdup.
Okay.
Yeah, just, you mentioned the lift station and you used the word upgrade. So has that changed? Because last time you were here, we talked, well, no, actually it was after the last time you were here. I think you contacted the city manager and said that you all would pay for a new lift station.
Yes.
So, but you just used upgrades. So are we still talking about, are we talking about upgrading that lift station? Or are we talking about replacing it entirely?
Well, what I was saying is the terminology in the development order is upgrade the existing lift station. So that was always the confusion between the previous developer and, of what standards they were going by.
Okay,
So-
but what are you doing?
We're we're doing a new lift station up to the current design tech manual.
Upgrading, so you're no longer replacing it with a new lift station.
Yeah, it's going to be a new lift station with the current design standards.
Okay.
So we're basically ripping out the existing one, putting all new,
Okay.
pumps, panels, everything that,
So you're replacing the wet well.
Yeah, the top portion of the wet well. The bottom portion is going to be, it's concrete. The concrete's fine. The engineer.
Okay, then
has-
it's not a new lift station. If the existing wet well is still going to be there, still be the same depth, and it's not a new lift
It's
station.
we can't move the structure of the lift station 'cause it's surrounded by wetlands.
Well, you keep
So-
saying that there's confusion, and the only confusion I'm hearing is your terminology. You keep claiming that there's a new lift station, and then there's an upgrade, and when people ask you a direct question, they don't get a direct answer.
The lift station is going to be in its current location. There's many technicalities of it, but it's being brought up to the new design.
So that's an
technical
upgrade.
standards. It's being brought up to the new tech design standards.
Okay,
So,
that's an upgrade. To answer your question,
That's
it's an
enough.
upgrade.
Okay.
Good enough.
I mean, what would you guys like us to do? We're bringing it up to
It's
the,
all good.
That's okay.
yeah.
It's good.
Just
Yeah.
keep doing what you're doing.
I do have another question though, on the sewer line. Has that been fully replaced, the sewer line you were talking about that was in the dirt and?
No, hasn't because there's a stop work order and they're waiting on the
I got you. So this,
specifications of the.
and I know this had
Probably said
nothing to
that
do
last-
with you, and I don't want you to think that's what I'm talking about, but is this the same sewer line that we're talking about that were covered with half-cut PVC to make it look like it
Yes.
had been changed by the previous developer?
We
So
dis-
it's still not replaced,
We
right?
discussed that last time, that he could fix that last time without having the stop work order lifted.
Okay.
You can't?
Yeah.
And again,
How is that? I mean, educate me. I didn't
It
know.
wasn't prohibited.
Have Chris come up, but the stop work order is only related to the buildings.
Okay, thank you.
Mm.
Oh, that makes sense. Thank you.
And one more thing, I'm sorry. And again, that's not a reflection on you at all, that line. I'm not saying that. But it's still one of those things that's just left undone, but we're the problem. What are the additional funds that you mentioned that you got approved for the project? I missed that part, but you said something about somebody had just approved additional funds. for
Yeah,
it?
Florida Housing, because they're the
Okay.
ones that are funding this project.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I would love to be able to go in there and do, piecemeal type stuff, but the problem is Florida Housing wants to make sure all the additional past problems are solved, cleared up, everything is good to go. So then they can, since there's a change of a general contractor,
Mhm.
and then they can release that additional funding. So that's what we're waiting on. I understand you said we can go in there and fix the sewer. Well, the main parts of the plan changes that we did were for the road and the structure and the slope. So we can't go in there and fix that if we don't have that approved back from the city engineer. Yeah, I know the stop work order says you can work on the site, but the buildings that are there right now are already constructed and pretty much dried in. The only thing we're really changing is the roadways and the stormwater. So there's no point of work. What's
You're still
that?
gonna have to dig all that up
Yeah.
to address the pipe. So whether your grading plan has been approved or not is irrelevant. You still got to dig all that up to fix the pipe.
Yes, I agree, but it's relevant because we can't do anything until the city gives a full clear that all the issues have been addressed, and then Florida Housing, then we can go to the county to get the permits, and then Florida Housing can release the funding and switch over the contractor. This is to prevent us starting again and then stopping, and no, these plans change. So, that's why we want the approved plans back to make sure there's no more confusion. And unfortunately, like I said, this sewer line runs right under the road. So We want to make sure everything is cleared up and, you know, the go ahead, no restrictions, because that's what Florida Housing wants. Because they don't want any more of this stop and forth, back and forth again. That's what we've been doing since August, is trying to work through those issues.
Mayor,
Yes.
just for clarification, does your plan include all brand-new sewer lines?
Yes. There's a brand new sewer line run right next to the old sewer line right now. It's just not hooked up. And we provided as-built to the city engineer back in January. But it's not hooked up to the lift station or the road because they were waiting on clarification of the lift station.
But you
So,
will.
yeah, that'll be the first thing that gets, you know, fixed.
Yes, ma'am.
Chris, can I ask Chris Wallace a question, please?
Sure.
Mr. Wallace, is the last, whatever revisions we're waiting for on Dewberry that will come in the next couple of weeks, will that clear everything up? I mean, I know the magistrate will then, I'm confident that she'll release things if the project's been approved and we're moving forward, and
Well,
I'm not
we-
concerned so
we
much
certainly
there.
hope so.
Okay,
Um,
so you don't anticipate any other hiccups along the way other than this
well,
last
I
Dewberry?
can't promise you that.
Well, what do you foresee when you say that? That gives me
Well,
hesitation,
their
like you've got
latest,
some.
the latest revisions, which, were given to Mr. Townsend today, latest comments from our engineer, which was, dated back May the 16th, I believe, included, and then their engineer responded in kind on June the 2nd, I believe,
Okay,
with a written response. And some of the written responses were not correctly identifying some of the problems that we have. One was stating that the access to the lift station was on city right of way. That needs to be clarified.
their access, the builder's access?
No, the city's access to that lift station off of Lincoln Avenue,
Mhm.
that they claim is right of way, which it is not. The other issue is that the lift station is being designed by another engineer, not Mr. Eubanks, who is doing the site work itself.
Is that
generally-
problematic?
Generally, you would have, it's not problematic that you have two different engineers working on the same project, but it gets problematic when, if we approve the site work and issue a DO for that, but we don't have
That piece
a
of the
DO for the
puzzle?
lift station, which is kind of the holdup here. So
Yeah,
we would,
you're breaking it into two DOs rather than one.
Would that matter as far as if we don't, I mean, is that something the developer then maintains all of that stuff, or?
well, I
because
don't know
it's ours,
how
have
we
to?
hold them to the original DO without having approval at lift station. What leverage do we have to ensure that the work gets completed outside of the lift station?
And to your extent, well, no, we typically do not allow privately owned lift stations that are an integral part of the city system. It's not as though this serves as one development.
And I would say
So the foreseeable hiccups could surround the lift station. Because I think it's a reasonable request what they're asking. Hey, look, we just want to get it all approved up front because we got different funding sources, we got,
yeah, absolutely.
We
And
don't
and that is what we would like to see.
right.
And there's work that could be done tomorrow out there in terms of the retention pond.
Well, and I
you know,
understand that
stabilizing
now. I
the
didn't
site.
realize that it was the buildings, but the land work could be done. But on the other side of the table, I do recognize the developer's issue and this gentleman, Mr. Kurleski, with his funding and trying to put all the pieces together.
And the new sewer line,
Yeah.
I'll call it new. I don't have any evidence that it's there. If they're as-built submitted, I've never seen them.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not doubting that they weren't submitted to, I'm not sure who would have accepted those back in January. It is not under the roadway. It is located to the west of where the new roadway, 16th Street extension would be. But we have not received any, normally that line would be camera. We would have significant details on that sewer line to know that it's been in, and we have not received any of that as to the best of my recollection.
What can we, is there anything that we can do to help?
Well, it's really, it falls on the
Facilitate or-
engineer. This is just like any other subdivision. Anytime you're putting in any infrastructure, it is up to them to provide cameras of your sewer line, bacterial tests on your water line, drawdown tests on your lift station. You know, there's a number of things that go into the process that we rely on them to provide us, and then we give them the go ahead or say, no, there's something inconsistent here. You need to read.
And none of that's unusual. I want to be clear, that's very standard in our process.
Yep. So we're working with Mr. Karleski. We want to see this job get completed as much as he does, but we want to see it done right. And unfortunately, the
that.
first time around, things got a little skewed when this was originally approved back in 17, 18, which is no fault of anybody at this table.
Well, I think we can
or
all
anybody in
attest
this
to
room,
when it's
but-
chaos and you got to start from scratch again. I mean, we've all been, even not in this project, but in other projects, we've had that happen to us. So
Yeah.
thank you for what you're doing so that we can help this.
Yeah.
I
And
like it
I can
because
assure you
it's-
that Mr. Townsend and I are working
Yeah,
very closely
I
with
want-
Mr. Karleski and
thank
and
you.
his engineers and our engineers to try to coordinate all these different moving parts. But our main
Thank
goal
you.
here is to see it come to completion.
So,
Yes, sir.
Yeah, and just to comment on that, yeah, when the sewer lines are ready to be turned over to the city, that all that documentation will be provided before they're hooked up. We're not going outside of any normal procedures. You know, that, so what happened is they were partially installed because there's a stop work order and everyone stopped working on the site. So when they go back to finish it, we're going to follow the normal procedures to, you know, what the city requires. And Craig with the Utility Solutions Group is a big contractor here. He's the one that did a lot of the work, so he knows the procedures. And then before they're officially hooked up and turned over to the city, they'll do all the cameraing and just, you know, the part about it being installed is that they're partially installed waiting for connection. So when they go in there, they have to, you know, survey everything, make sure it's still good. And then at that time, they'll, you know, turn it over to the city following every normal development procedure. We're not asking for the city to take that right now. As far as the lift station, what I was told is that, you know, that's a separate process because it's the city's lift station. And that, you know, because if we wait for that to all get approved, it's going to just keep delaying the project. So that was going to be done in concurrence. And then they weren't going to issue the DOs to the houses until that was signed off and ready to go. So that was the solution that was told to me, because if you want to wait for the lift station to get installed and approved, like I said, that we won't be able to work on the site for another 6 months, but they can do them together because they're going to be bypassing the lift station regardless.
Yeah.
And none of our sewer water is going to be going into that lift station until it's completely signed off by the city and turned over. And then the development sewer will be, you know, connected to that. And then,
I think it boils down to, you know, just get things cleared up with Dewberry.
yeah,
And, yeah, you gotta tell us every step of the way. Hopefully y'all can get those matters cleared up and we can get you guys back to work, you know.
okay.
Thank you very much.
Can I ask one more thing?
Yeah.
I mean, you know, this project's been out there for so long and it's an ecological disaster.
10 minutes.
With the runoff towards those wetlands. So that's my concern. I mean, this is in our lap at this point in time. The lift station, the sewer connection, all that stuff, that's minor. That has to be right or it won't go forward. But that erosion is my big concern. And I don't know how you can work in there. You mentioned that it's graded. I walked that this afternoon, not on the property inside the fence, but down to the lift station. And I had a hard time just walking the road to the lift station, but looking out across that landscape of these buildings, it's awful.
Yeah,
That has
that's-
to be mitigated. That has to be resolved because, I mean, if we approve this, let it go forward and it's not done the way it should be, this is a difficult project. And you're a brave man for taking it on because it's a site that has to be done absolutely 100% properly, or it'll come back later. And I don't want to
Correct.
deal with it later personally, but I would like to see it completed. We need the homes, but it needs to be done absolutely right, and everything needs to be right. And we're supportive of, I think, finishing this if as long as it's done right. The tiered way, in my mind, or something, but a straight downhill run of all the water and stuff, I just don't. I don't think that's an adequate plan for that particular piece of property. And we didn't have anything to do with approving it, but here it is.
Well, yeah, there's stormwater plans and engineering and, an engineer designed it for that site and it'll be built exactly per those plans. The problem is just getting the plans approved so we can start. So,
Mhm.
I mean, there's engineers that, look at all that and they're experts and,
Right.
we get the plans approved and then we'll follow it. So that won't be an issue. The problem is now where it's exposed and it keeps deteriorating. That's why we're, trying to mitigate a lot of the erosion and start the process of getting the approved plans built and finalized.
Well, I hope we can move it forward and hopefully Dewberry will get back with you here shortly.
Yeah.
We're gonna do a real quick 7-minute recess break. Got some,
Thank you.
need to hit the hallway.
camera. He'll be up here.
Mm-hmm. All right, we're gonna call this, this meeting back to order. And now we're going to citizen comments. If you have a comment, we ask you to hold it 3 minutes or less. Please state your name. If you're representing an organization or business, state that as well. And we'll open the floor at this time. Come on up.
Hello. I'm not good at reading scripts and some allergies have gotten a hold of me, so I'm going to do my best. My name is Randy Lightner, Lightner. It's been brought to my attention recently that the city is considering handing over control of their fire department to Walton County Sheriff's Office. This would be absolutely the worst decision that you could make. I could give you a laundry list of stories, but I'll give you two that affected me greatly personally. The first, in 2022, my son was in an accident resulting in over a month-long coma and a 3-month hospital stay, where it was suggested to us to remove the ventilator and let him die. Life Flight was grounded the day of his accident, and it took both medics on the ambulance to keep him alive to Fort Walton. A volunteer firefighter had to drive the ambulance because Walton County Fire Rescue had no other hands. This was in 2022. If everything had been dissolved at that point, we'd have been waiting on Okaloosa homes, and I would have buried my son that day. Once Walton County Fire Rescue arrives, you cannot find better care. You could search the world over. They're amazing, but they got to get to you, and they can't. So that's the short version of that. The second story, just over a month ago, I actually had a medical emergency. My call was not dispatched for 2 minutes, and help did not arrive for 15 minutes. I only live a couple miles up 331 North. The state, to compound this issue, the state is currently discussing doing away with special districts. If that happens, we're going to lose both of our volunteer fire departments. That's only going to leave the Funiac Springs Fire Department and Walton County Fire Department, or Walton County Fire Rescue. Just as you guys are having to crunch your budget, figure out what you're going to do, Walton County Sheriff's Office and Fire Rescue have to do the same thing. So you will not, I promise you, you're going to regret it if you get rid of it. There's going to be no backup. If the Funiac Springs Fire Department is gone, Walton County Fire Rescue has had to crunch their budget, spread their help thin like they're already doing now. Who's coming? Okaloosa, Eglin, or Holmes? You don't want that to be your family member. I wish I could have talked my son into coming up here tonight just so you could see how great he's doing now. But that wouldn't have been the case if Liberty Fire Department had been dissolved that day. And it could be any of you in this room if you get rid of your fire department the next time. If you make this move, after the honeymoon phase is over, response times, I promise you, are going to greatly decrease. And this council will live forever in infamy. That's just a fact. I promise you. I don't care about the CRA. I love some things I've seen with the CRA. But if the CRA is the only place to get money from, this shouldn't even be something we should have to discuss or question. You know, you could decrease it to 50%, and the county would still be awarded $300,000, a $200,000 loss to keep your fire department. That's not even a question. Just remember, once this decision is made, it will take millions to reverse it. Millions. Everything's going to be gone, and you will be starting from scratch. The next sheriff, if he doesn't want Walton County Fire Rescue, he can just hand it back to the BCC because they are ultimately responsible. If that happens, the county is under no obligation to give you 1 red cent to rebuild a fire department. You will be.
It's been 3 minutes already.
Okay.
Okay, I think this is important enough to give
No,
you
wrap
just
it
a
up.
couple more seconds here. In 2024, Liberty Fire Department had 123 mutual aid calls to assist Walton County. Argyle, 70 mutual aid calls. I'm not going to give the Defuniac numbers because I don't have them yet officially, but that's 223 times that Walton County had to have help. It goes both ways. All of those departments had to have help as well. But that just tells you help may not be coming if there's nowhere for Walton County to rely on that backup. And the last thing I'm going to say, and this is not personal, I don't believe that anyone who works for a department you're considering giving a contract to should have any vote in it. And that's not personal at all. That's optics. I think that should be heavily considered. If anyone works for contracts through Walton County Sheriff's Office, they should not be a part of this discussion and not be a part of this vote. And please understand, it's not personal at all. I've watched a lot of meetings. They're refreshing. I know everyone up here seems to want to do what's best for the city. So don't take any of my words personal on that regard. It's a matter of optics, how things look. And if Mr. Harrison said in the last meeting,
Okay,
those matter. Those
Thank
matter
you.
more than anything. Thank you for your time.
thank you. And of course, you may hear comments, but we've had no discussion about shutting down
It's
the
kind
fire
of,
department. Yes,
I was going to ask you, Mayor, are you,
I'm
It's-
sorry.
it's news to
No,
me
no.
if the fire department's on the chopping block, is it?
No,
May I comment that where
Mr. Mayor.
I have been told,
ma'am, no, ma'am.
it was brought up in your budget one time.
Uh, there's a lot of things that need to be talked about. We talk about fire department, we talk about PD, we talk about a lot of things in the city. What if PD and fire department took 98% of our budget? Should it be talked about? And so, that's the thing is like, we got to put things in perspective, and to not consider an alternative would be very irresponsible on the councilman's behalf. You don't have to go out there and blast that publicly or on Facebook or anything like that. It's something you should always think about. And not with just them. Everything that we do, is there an alternative? Is there a way to contract it out? Not just PD and fire department, everything that we do. And so we're constantly having to shake the bushes to see, does something need to change? And our fire department was at my house for 2 hours Tuesday night. I don't want them to go anywhere. The fire department has been at my house 5 times in 2021. And 3 of those times I had to have somebody hauled to the emergency room. I know what it's like to have emergencies. I've had them for years. So I definitely don't want to see them go. But we're going to keep things in perspective, and we're going to always keep shuffling the cards to see if we can come up with the best deal. I don't know. I talked to Sheriff Atkinson probably 5, 6 years ago. We talked about it. It's just a conversation. He doesn't want our PD or our fire and rescue. But if it were dumped on him, he'd take it. But that's his only thing he's ever appealed to me about. And so I don't think anybody's trying to, gain another big expense. And trust me, it is a big expense. But we love our PD and we love our fire department and we want to keep them. But we got to keep them in check, And so, if there's been discussion made, it may be one private individual, but it's not the council. So just wanted to make you aware of that. Anyone else? Public comment. All right, I'll close the floor for public comment and we will move on to, Clay, you got anything?
I just want to say one thing, Mayor, and I by no means mean to take away from city staff, because what Danielle and Kobe have done with this audit is absolutely stellar. You and I have been through a lot of these, Mayor, but I also want to make a comment, because the council will sit up here and get criticized for the reports of the audit. Sometimes it's the staff, sometimes it's things beyond their control, you as well, Mayor. So I just want to take a moment and at least say that I hope everyone does recognize that this council, this dais has sat here for 2.5 years, and every time one of our financial team has asked for help getting something done, approve those opportunities. The city spent a lot of money getting right from where we were very, very bad. And they spent a lot of time and effort at this dais. And I just want to make a comment that as somebody who sits through far too many governmental meetings, this council has had to take a more proactive role than it has over the last 1.5 years in its audit than any other government board I've had to deal with, because it's been necessary and it's happened. So that's taking nothing away from Danielle's efforts, taking nothing away from Kobe's efforts. Your staff is the one who's done it. But the council at least deserves somebody to call out. We're turning an audit in on time for the first time in at least 5 years that I can think of. I mean, I know back in COVID, well, we got an extension. Everybody got an extension during COVID, but we definitely took it. So there's I mean, this is a lot of effort to get us here and hopefully it's on the right track, but I don't think anybody needs to lose sight of, we've come from some really difficult times. This council has given its staff everything it needs and, so Kobe and Danielle certainly have done a great job with it, but I wanted somebody to at least be able to say that for the council because this council's borne the brunt, and Mayor, you have as well, a lot of criticism for it not being done right. So if nobody else can say, I just want to put that on the record. Thank y'all for what you do, because I'm a taxpayer and a resident right here in Keniak too. And I like to see it done right. So thank y'all.
Thank you. All right. We're going to go ahead and move Ms. Heaven.
Clay, thanks for recognizing that. And I want to again reiterate, thank you, Danielle, Kobe. Leaps and bounds from when I started in April of 23, and that was my main goal. I was really frustrated by the airport being commingled inside the general fund, and you couldn't really extract things. And I am so tickled to death because this was a big achievement. I mean, I told you it would take us 2 complete cycles and probably 3. And I think we've got a little bit more to clean up, but thank you both. Thank you, Danielle, to your team. It's not an easy effort. I know what you've gone through, late nights, long days, weekends, just to get the city where we are today. And I'm very blessed and pleased. And I kind of want to encourage her to apply for for this role that I have. But what do we need to do, Kobe, to move forward? Because I don't want her to get burnt out. I don't want us to get behind. I'd like to go ahead and move forward now that the audit's out. We're on time. What do we need to do as a team up here to move forward the finance director's position?
Obviously, we currently already have an approved job description and the ordinances there from
Okay.
prior hires. But we went back and, listened to the workshop we had a few months ago on some of the requirements that the council had discussed and talked about. I have those here, but I mean, ultimately, I don't know about Mr. Atkinson would be more on the ordinance, but those would require an ordinance change in order for it to come back, which would require 2 hearings. So it takes some time, and then the job description will be updated.
I can have it
that.
for you at the next
Okay.
meeting if that's what we want to update. But the job description, we can start it now. I know, Councilwoman, you want the job description, the ordinance to match. What I'd say is if we want to expedite the process here, we approve the job description, we can get that out on the street and I'll bring back an ordinance that conforms to it. But I can have the ordinance ready to go based on the notes. In fact, I'd say I'm in the 85% stage on the draft. Basically, I just need to go back and pull all the old ordinance numbers and make sure I'm doing the correct repealers versus amendatory language.
And I'm not looking to rush it. I just want to move it forward so that we're not stagnant. I don't want to see it just the ball dropped. And now that we're in a good
Let's get a job
place,
description for their next meeting, Kobe. How about that?
would that be acceptable to everybody?
I know we got a 4th of July holiday in there, so I'll defer to staff.
Yeah, we can have that back, and it's up to. I mean, we have the requirements y'all discussed. There was the or option. We had that, and then you also had your preference updated a little bit. But we can bring that back with those changes we discussed at that workshop.
Yeah, I remember us, working through that and it being brought back, but I don't remember complete consensus from that workshop on what we do in the job description versus what we do in the ordinance. And so I definitely want to see the position be advertised again. So I'm wondering, could we be sent the existing job description, and maybe if there's consensus, we could go ahead and at least advertise that, versus do we need to have a meeting to discuss, refining the job description?
I'm
I think
okay
it's-
either way. I'm amenable to, I just don't want her getting burnt
Sure,
out. I don't want
sure.
the team getting burnt out.
Yeah.
And I think it's, just verbiage and, I'm willing to.
Okay. Mayor,
Yeah, go ahead.
Clay. If we move forward on this, are we required to advertise it again?
Yeah, well, you're going to have a job posting advertising. I mean, and technically, I guess the council could hire somebody if they had somebody in the house that wants the job. But you can't hire Danielle if she says no, as an example. But if you're not going to do that, you got to advertise it.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
I don't know if I want to prolong all of this out tonight. Maybe it does require a workshop, but in speaking of Kobe off the record, preparation for the meeting and all, we talk about things. And one of the things is what would make this more appealing to applicants versus the way that it is now. And I know that we've had discussions across the bow about this in the past at different times, but it was who the finance director actually reports to. And there's reasons why it's written up the way that it is today. But it could also be causing issues with a quality pool of applicants too, because some people may not want to answer directly to a council, rather just answering to the city manager. I also know that you brought that up once before at some point, and I really at that time I didn't understand why until talking to Kobe last week, and then it kind of made a little sense to me. So you want to expound on that a little bit for us, Kobe, so that everybody, I don't know if you had the same talk with everybody else, but that way we all understand it completely and fully.
So, my recommendation when we had our workshop and prior to that, and the same one I spoke with all of you about prior to this meeting, I do believe that the current process may be a hindrance to applicants. I do think we're going to do some things in the next couple of months. Hopefully we'll make that more appealing to applicants. But my recommendation has been and will continue to stand that I do believe the council should either contract that person directly to the council, such as the Board of County Commissioners do, or put that directly under the city manager. Now, if you do that, if you're not comfortable with that whole, maybe it requires confirmation by the council of a certain amount. However it looks, but I do believe personally in my conversations with other professionals in my realm that it does seem to be very unique and could be a challenge to the reason we're not getting certain applicants. That is my recommendation to the council. But obviously in the day, we're going to make anything happen that this council wants to see done.
And I'm just curious how my other colleagues up here feel about that, so that we know.
I like the idea in the beginning, what's going on at the county level and the way that they have their structure right now. That's a long time coming. That didn't happen just from day one. And I would appreciate it going back under the city manager. I mean, you're going to have a lot. I'd like to see that relationship first before it actually comes here. Because I think, it's a lot of pressure being on that side of the desk, talking to the five of us. And, I just think if that is a hindrance, that it might start better by being put back under the city manager.
Mr. Mayor.
Go ahead.
So Kobe and I had a fairly lengthy discussion about this particular topic. I'm as the one of the only people on here that was actually part of the process of moving it back out and directly under the council. There was two main pieces of logic behind that. Number one was there was not a desire at the council level at that time to have to do multiple public employee reviews. The thought process was that for day-to-day management, in other words, did you show up on time? Are you performing the work that you're asked to do, et cetera? That is reviewed and handled by the city manager. And then that allows some of the politics to stay out of it at a council level. But the thing that council undertook, as well as in subsequent extensive discussions, even when we were rewriting the charter, I firmly believe that the finance department should operate as a check and balance on the powers that are endowed to the city manager, because everything always comes back to money. And so that's why I believe that the city finance director should have an ability to report directly to the council directly on financial matters and not have to have it filtered. Because, and I'm not saying this about Kobe whatsoever, and Kobe and I have had extensive conversations about this, but I have seen in the past where financial information gets filtered out. And then you look back later on it and you go, I wasn't given a complete picture on that. And as a council member, as an individual council member, that's deeply troubling to me. And so I want to seek out ways that we can offer checks and balances that make us better and provide accountability and transparency. But to this idea that it somehow is limiting our pool of applicants, or maybe providing confusion. Let me offer this anecdotal piece of information. I have a direct manager. He has a direct manager. They have a direct manager. So in essence, that's not much different than what we see going on structured here, right? Any one of those people in that line from my direct manager above could look at me tomorrow and say, Todd, you're not working out, you're gone. That's no different than the five of us. And actually it is different in that the five of us, at least four of us have to agree on that termination. So this idea that there's ambiguity and that it's somehow again, when I've had these one-on-one conversations, I've really pressed Kobe for where I understand that there's this idea that it's limiting the pool of applicants, but show me proof. Show me where people that we wanted have walked away because they felt like there was some sort of reporting ambiguity. Because I firmly believe, and this is what I told Kobe on Friday, he's a professional. He manages it. He's got 5 bosses. Why would we not expect the same out of our finance director when they're dealing with the finances? The one thing that we can all get in trouble for, and the thing that we all get in trouble, we'll get in trouble for the fastest, is our finances. So why would we not want to have that direct reporting capability?
Let me ask Clay a question. No, we have limitations as to what the council can do with our manager. They can't tell him how to run day-to-day operations. I'm sure that they can give an opinion, but they can't give him direction. Is that correct?
Yeah, of course,
Okay, so basically that would be the same thing for the finance director?
of course.
Okay, and so, but for any action to be taken, it had to be back here with at least 4, I guess.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Well, to hire a fire, I mean, 3 just to do general
Yeah,
action, yes.
right, gotcha, okay. So, I don't know unless you just, I guess if you had a situation where you were really concerned about your manager, I could see Todd's point. And I guess this could be changed in a matter of 30 days if you did it one way and wanted to change it.
Absolutely. Oh, we can bring it back that quick. And I note the council has taken a step in this direction where it is understood that the city manager now has the ability, and has now for several years, the ability and the authority to discipline and fire, and he actually can fire the finance director for violations of personnel policy. And we've strengthened those relationships in light of the grand jury report to make sure the city manager does have oversight over what the finance director is doing. One thing, and we've talked about this before, I know Councilman Beerbaum will recall this. One thing we've talked about before is the provision says the city council shall appoint the finance director in consultation with you, Mayor. Nothing says the city council can't let Kobe go through the process of doing all the interviews and bringing you back the person he wants, and you approve his hire. It says you're the one who makes the appointment at this level by a 4-1 vote. So, I mean, if you didn't want to do the interviewing publicly, if you thought that was a stop, there's no reason you can't let Kobe bring you the short list, say, here's my short list, here's my number 1. And it's up to the council how you do all of that. But I think ultimately that's what you got to decide is how that process plays out.
Amy?
I'm flexible. Look, for the last couple of years, we had a rocky start. There was a lot of chaos. That was the interim director or city manager before you. There was just other chaos from us missing deadlines for several years and, not getting financials out on time. I'm okay either way. I'm flexible. All I want is us not to fall into a mud hole and not get start on the search to get the position filled, because now I want to move forward. Now that we've got a good starting base for somebody, and Kobe and the team, I mean, we can just make leaps and bounds. We're making them in all these other different areas. I just want to see us not fall short here. Because you're right, this will keep us all out.
He did bring up a good point too. If there's disciplinary actions to be taken, it can be handled by the city manager rather than all of that being brought out.
Can or cannot?
Instead of all that being brought out. Some things that the doesn't care to see or want to see it, it hasn't got to deal with that. But
I think
I-
there's ways that we can, I mean, look, everybody said that we wouldn't get a new city manager, that 5 of us wouldn't vote on the same thing. So,
Yeah.
you know, we're living proof of our own. We can do this. We can come up with some reasonable way of doing it, whether it's a hybrid, whether it's full on the council, or I'm going to work with everybody. So
I'm fine with it. Again, the reason why I wanted to bring that up when you were talking about it was because I wanted to know everybody's feelings on it. This is the only time that we can talk
Right.
about it together. So going along with what Clay was saying too about the city manager could bring back the applicant. I know there's ways we may or may not want that to come back too, but I can agree with it staying the way that it is and letting it go that way, or staying the way that it is and us continue
You
to
just
do
have to designate
interviews.
the hiring
That's just
process.
how-
As long as you do that, we're compliant with code.
well, tell us what we need, and I'll put something together. I'll put something under my name for the next agenda meeting.
Well, I think
then, if that
Kobe's
would
gonna bring
work.
it back under his
Or-
with the job description. I'll work with him to have a draft ordinance to mirror. We'll be back at the next meeting with something.
But you want a couple recommendations then of what we're talking about now on how it's gonna,
I think advertising
How
is
to
the first
hire 'em?
step. Kobe, you wanna try to put together?
can
your
you do
thought
that,
on
Kobe?
I mean, if the council wants to go and advertise it as was discussed, we can definitely do that. And if y'all want to move through that process and make those changes as we go, then we can do that as well. And then next meeting, we'll have the job description back, we'll work with Mr. Atkinson to have an ordinance. And then the process, that's either something you can finalize now, or you can all think on it, and next meeting, you'll decide on it.
Yeah, you can look at that ordinance at that next meeting. It's not gonna be for adoption, obviously, because you gotta have 2 readings. But that way you can give me the guidance of what you want advertised. And if we change our process or change the ordinance terms, we can address it then.
Seems like, how many applicants did we have the last finance director we hired? It seems like there were like 15 or so. Is that right?
Yeah, I have to pull it up. I don't want to lie. It was just more than 10.
Yeah, it was. So, but that doesn't mean, because we narrowed it down pretty quickly. So it doesn't mean they were all, that's exactly right. So we really don't know whether it's affecting our applicants or not. It very, very likely could be, and that's easy to see. But, you know, I'm kind of open-minded about it. I mean, we get a financial report every month. You asked for it, right? I think it was you, and we've been getting that. So we're updated on, well, no?
I'm behind. I've been working on your audit. I'm sorry.
I didn't do it, Danielle. I didn't say it.
Well,
I'm being honest. I'm
I'm
behind.
just kidding.
But we stay pretty apprised of expenditures. We've got our policies in place that, well, we just did a updating on, right? And so we're pretty open, and I mean, there's not a whole lot I have a doubt about. If I do have a doubt, I can go sit down and talk with Danielle. And she has been serving as, you know, our finance director plus her old position. I mean, she's been filling a lot of shoes. That's why she's getting so many accolades tonight. She's been incredible through all of this. But I'm kind of open to it. You know, on one hand, I think how difficult it is for a person to be hired and work for 5 different people, and how very quickly that can become political. And that's one hesitation I have about it. At some point, I understand the rationale for having the council, you know, the finance director report to it. I get it. But, you know, y'all heard me talk about continuity of the city manager in place, and hopefully continuity of city council, and how important that is. And so I put a lot of faith in our current city manager that he's going to do what's best for the city, because it's in his best interest to do so. And we all know that. So, but I'm open-minded to think about this and see what we think is the best way, because I agree with you. We can figure it out.
Yeah.
We've been figuring out a lot of things.
Yes,
So,
exactly. What's the school board structure? Do you know? How does the finance director, do they fall under the board or the
As far as their
superintendent?
Technically, it's the superintendent, but the superintendent school board structure is wildly different than anything we have here. Yeah, technically, it's under the super.
Yeah.
All right, so he's gonna bring us back job description with, he's working on this other at the same time.
And just to be clear, Mayor, Councilman Gerbach made a good point. I know him and I talked about it when he asked, well, Kobe, how is it affecting our applicants? 100% good question. I said, well, I can't tell you that, right? Because we never asked.
Mhm.
So maybe it's something, if the process we go, we ask that question, hey, is this a hindrance to something? So,
You
very
know,
good point.
I think in general, you know, because mainly it's, we know managers all over the place work for 5 or 7 council members, you know, and that has been problematic. You know, I mean, of course, their dismissals have been unbelievable how many we see, you know, just in our neighborhoods from Pensacola, Tallahassee. It's just unbelievable. And so it does make it very difficult. I think that you can get arranged to get the same continuity and continuation to them with those people through and with your manager, because there's very little you can do anyway without him. You know, you can't go give them any direction not unless you do it from this table right here.
I just, having been there, done that, bought the T-shirt on what I felt like I'll just be frank. I felt like at least 2 different city managers have deceived me on financial matters in the past.
Have what?
Have deceived me
Oh,
on financial matters, and that is why I am so adamant that we retain some sort of.
maybe we could get a different type of reporting mechanism, like either quarterly that would be flexible enough to give you the information that you're wanting, because I'm really like that too. I mean, I need data and statistics. I don't want to be tricked, you know, or misled by what the knowledge they might know or not want to disclose at the time. I don't think that we're going to face that right now with our
No.
existing city manager, so we're not saying anything like that, but I hear what you're saying. But maybe we could I think we can come up with a different solution and accommodate all of our concerns.
Yeah, and one of the things that, again, we kind of talked about this, Mayor can recall with Mr. McKnight rewriting the charter. We really felt adamant at that time that the finance that functioned almost like a inspector general, you know, check and balance type of mechanics to just an unlimited spend from the city manager, right? And it's infamous, so I'm going to bring it up. But you know, this kind of came up in the workshop the other day. The street painting, the infamous street painting. One of the things that absolutely sent me through the roof was finding out that the city manager directed the finance director to transfer the funds between various accounts to actually have that street painting come out of the executive committee. The executive, our budget, is for us to like have an iPad and random stuff. They put all the money in there and then suck the money out of there to pay for the street painting. Why? Other than maybe it was an attempt to make us look bad if it went south. There was little things like that throughout those years that added up to me to where I really, that's why I'm so passionate about having the finance director kind of function in this, to have some independence, that they can come to us because they report to us and be able to communicate with us and not feel like that they have to have it filtered through the city manager. So I don't want to beat a dead horse, but
Well, you know, but back and forth, but you know, one thing I don't think we did back then that we could have done, you know, it could have been brought to the dais and talked about. And if it was clear that that's what happened, I believe we could have dealt with it, you know, but I think that most of that was kept in the ears of 1 or 2 people, not the whole council. So, I mean, I think you can get what you want, you know, through, you know, even if he's the hiring person, we still do our investigations and bring it up as long as the council's in agreement with it. So I think you can do everything you want. It's probably more about the hiring and firing than anything else, because if he sees that there's 3 or 4 people on this council are very upset with that finance director, I can't imagine that manager keeping them around. I think you can get what you want either way. I just try to think it'd be a little easier to hire and a lot easier to fire.
I don't want to stand in the way of progress and getting a good finance director in here, but I just want the rest of my fellow council members to kind of understand where I'm coming from.
That's a good point. It's a good point. It's a good point that, you know, you keep your manager in check, you know, but that's a two-sided coin.
Sure.
So it's, we're just gonna have to, I think we've been paying more attention to detail than any council I've been with. This is my 13th year. So,
And we needed to,
yeah.
though, under our
yeah,
circumstances.
and so
But
I think it would be foolish for somebody to pull some of the junk that was done a few years ago. I really do.
Mr. Mayor, just one last food for thought.
Mhm.
And I love Danielle being here and sitting here. But sometimes if we do move forward and get somebody that lives a distance away, this is difficult because you still got another hour or so drive back to your residence. So,
We just don't need any more 9 o'clock at night meetings.
thank God. I know,
9
right?
o'clock, how about
Yeah.
4 to 10?
But we
10.
might want to consider,
That's
can
true.
we, do they need to attend
Even
every
this one.
single meeting? You know, how much input is there? Is it something that the city manager can bring back to us? I mean, it's just food for thought right now. Nobody has to put it in, but just kind of think of their input on a routine basis, because if we do get one, Danielle, that lives a distance away, then it might be nice that they're not here so late, because they do
We
put
don't
in a
mind
lot of
your grandkids
hours. This
move
is not
over.
an 8-hour a day job. Hint, hint.
Yeah. All right, so you're gonna bring that back. Good.
Yes, sir.
All right, let's move on, Mr. Coulson. Florence Park.
Okay, back when I was knocking on doors and meeting people, Florence Park was one of the places I liked going to. Parents were willing to share suggestions, and one of the things that they were concerned about at that park was the busyness of 11th. Now, if you position yourself at, for the benefit of the audience, at the intersection of 11th and Live Oak East and go south, Florence Park is down just a couple of blocks. They were concerned about the children chasing balls out into 11th. They weren't concerned about Clay, and they weren't concerned about Ellisor. They were concerned about something to stop the kids from chasing the ball and running into 11th. So I said, if I find myself in a position to bring this up, I will. So this is one of my, one of the things that I said I would try and do. I don't know if there's any money in the budget, if it needs to be, if this should be discussed at the budget meeting, or if this is something that we can do now, but I stepped it off. It's 500 linear feet, put on the east side of the city sidewalk, coated in plastic, black, 4 feet tall, no right angles, just a safety barrier there. And I wanted to see how y'all felt about that.
I think supportive. I think
We'll be
a fence,
asking
you want
Kobe
a
to fund
fence part of the original thought on that.
There was some discussion around it.
But we only had so much money. Tony's here. Tony, can you address that?
Well, actually, Mayor, can I ask, I've already had this conversation with Kobe. And can you share how do you remember how the money was discussed on the fence?
So when we first did the project, the playground equipment was a deal with FPL for easements. Everyone remembers that. And we had discussed last year about the park and the progression of it and when we might do various elements of it. Another part of the FPL donated the solar bench. We poured a slab, so that's there as well. We are currently, working with Tree Board on, looking through the master plan. So maybe another phase of it. But when the councilman did ask me about the park, I told him this was probably the best avenue to bring it to the council, see if it is a priority. If it is a priority of some sort, then to probably for staff to go back, get a cost estimate for that, bring it back to the body, and then the body decide if it's a this year, next year, or when it may be. So.
Okay, so the best way to do it would be to make a motion to get a cost. Is that correct?
I don't even think we have to make a motion, just direct staff to do it
General
for us and
direction.
bring it back.
I'd support him bringing back a cost estimate.
Okay, and would we discuss this at the next budget meeting?
He can bring it back to the next council, or as soon as he gets those estimates for you, the next council.
Okay. All right, so that's Florence Park. The next thing is,
Can comment on?
yes, sir.
I live down Clay Street from that park and they're quite often, and it is a hazard, you know, for kids to run off that playground. Even if they're not chasing a ball, the kids are kids, you know, and those little ones, they take off, and for parents sitting on a bench or whatever, they might not get them to them in time. Because there is a speeding problem on 11th Street. There's no question about it. But I think if we're going to look at doing a fence and get estimates or ballparks or whatever, I think we need to consider all the way around that particular playground, not the entire property. That'd be kind of silly, but just around down the inside edge of the sidewalk, behind the park bench that's under the oak trees. Across in front of the parking spaces, but because kids run over from that playground to their cars. And Florence is narrow. Two full-size pickup trucks can barely pass without somebody going on the grass. And so a kid darts out between those cars, they're in Florence Street and could get hit by a car there. So a gate, for people to park, get out, enter that gate, close the gate. And then the water fountain probably needs to be inside that fence as well. So I would say something in that area would be, and Kobe and I talked about this the other day, and maintenance is always a problem. Everything we do is it requires more maintenance. And I suggested, you know, considering a narrow foot wide section of narrow saccharine or something under that fence, and what does that eliminate? Weed eating, you know, and then the mower can just run right down the edge of it, and it's they're done quick with those 0-turn mowers. But so if we do it in a smart way, and the coated fence like Councilman Coates is talking about, it's a safety thing on the playground. But I think it's important that the money was not there when this, just like the bathrooms were discussed for this park as well. So we're at the point, shade cloths. By the way, where does that stand with the county?
We have ordered them, we're waiting to receive them.
I'm sorry?
We have ordered them, we're waiting to receive them.
Okay, so has the county, have we got an agreement with them you said they were?
So I reached out to Walton County's Building and Facilities, I think it's Facility Maintenance and Construction Department, the name of it. We purchased the shade sails. They're waiting for them to come in from the manufacturer or the vendor.
Yeah.
When they do, I've talked to them, then they will be willing to come and help us out to kind of teach staff on how to put them in. I don't imagine this will be the last ones we ever put in. They do take a little bit of construction work. They have some pretty good sized footers in them. They're pretty tall and heavy. So they're willing to come over and help out with that as well.
So how close would we be to that particular agreement with the county for them to help us out with that?
As soon as we receive them, we'll coordinate with that director of that department and make sure the county administrator's involved and he's okay with that as well.
Okay, good deal. But the fence is, I would just suggest that if we're going to get estimates to protect from both streets.
Kim, wait.
Thank you, Kim Winterberg, coming tonight from not as a citizen, but not as a citizen in this per se, but as the Beautification and Tree Board. Mr. Grayson, we have talked about on the board here for a couple of years about improvements to Florence Park, and one of our former members had brought up about fencing, and it's definitely something that I think as a board we would be supportive of, and not to the detriment of safety of our citizens. But I know we're in a budgeting process right now, and the Beautification and Tree Board is having a second meeting to discuss requests for what are continued priorities, if you will, that we had presented to the council previously. So I don't know if fencing Florence Park is on that, but if that's something that the council would like to see, we would definitely want to know about that so that we can discuss it. I know we've talked about the dog park and trying to get that implemented. That's one of the bigger items that I would say would be a budget request, along with just general other items. And I'm just going from memory right now. I'm not recalling some of the other stuff, but I just wanted to say it is something that we've talked about. The board collectively wants Florence Park. I think one of our members called it a mini Central Park. We'd really like to see it be really beautiful. And I'm certainly not opposed to fencing, but I would love to chat with you and any of the other members about it if you guys would like to give us your insights.
Okay.
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 Make sure you're engaged.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
I've been conditioned to where when you go into a hiring freeze, that money is tight, tight, tight. So I didn't want to go overboard. So would it be too much trouble to get 2 estimates? I like his idea. It's going to be more costly. And also get an estimate for the 500 linear feet. Also like the idea on the concrete footer. That's a maintenance issue. So could you bring us back to, are you okay with that?
I'm good.
Okay.
I'm in support of that as well.
Yeah, whole council in support. I'll bring it back.
Okay. The next thing is the tennis courts. Do you have a update for us on the lights? And that's just one issue. There's another issue, but
So the last communications we had with FPL staff reached out to them pretty regularly to see where they're at. We're mid-June, 1st of July, so obviously we're toward the end of June now. I believe I've seen communications where the lights that we are receiving have been backlogged a little bit. I don't know how far that is. They didn't give a specific timeline, but we have paid the invoice, which we needed to, which was $600. That was $50 per light apparatus. They'll come, they will remove it, and they'll put the new one. And so we're just waiting on FPL to come and put them in. So we've been in contact with them. They've been in contact with us. And so we're on their work order system.
who owns those light poles?
The city does.
Okay. And we don't have a bucket truck?
We do, but it was $50 a piece for them to take them down and dispose of them. So we felt that was a pretty good deal.
Okay. So have you talked to Mr. Bernard Johnson today?
Not today, I have not.
Okay. I received an unsolicited text from him. He was just, bringing me up to speed, let me know what's going on. Right now, the supply problem is on FPL's table. They're back ordered. And he said he'll stay in contact on a regular basis because he knows that this has been an issue and we've been talking about it for a few months now.
Mm-hmm.
The next thing is that there's a group of tennis players in town that before they go out and play tennis, there's a lot of cracks in the court. And grass and weeds grow up. And before they can play a game of tennis, they have to weed the tennis court.
Mm-hmm.
And so I said, being new, I said, well, no problem. I got a squirt bottle full of Roundup. I'll go down there and hit it. And he said, no. This guy was a city councilman for 20 years. He said, tell the city manager, put it on the agenda, however you want to handle it, and let them start doing it the right way. So the right way would be to go down there with some Roundup and to kind of pick up their game a little bit on the maintenance and weed eating and stuff like that for the tennis courts. Because it's a big thing, especially for the senior citizens. And they really take a lot of pride in their neighborhood tennis court.
Mr. Mayor?
Yeah, go ahead.
Didn't we just have the tennis courts resurfaced not too long ago?
I believe in,
2 years ago.
I think it was early 24, late 23, we had pickleball lines and warm courts.
And I thought we actually had them resurfaced.
I did too.
I actually rode my bike over there 2 days ago and looked at it, and he was right. I don't know if the construction was shoddy. I don't know who built it, but the tennis courts are cracking.
Does anybody remember who did we do that in-house or did we pay a company? Because if we just had them redone, then they shouldn't be cracking.
It was a company.
We did have redone.
We'll look and see when the last time the time was.
Would you like some photographs for the next meeting or?
No.
In terms of
Wait,
maintenance,
no.
I see it every day. I'm 2 doors down from it. But that company was hired and it was probably, I would say somewhere 21, 22, 23, somewhere along in there. And it started cracking a while back. So I think from my understanding it was about $35,000 or so to have it resurfaced. So it's one of those things until the foundation of it is done, like, it's just like roads. If it's not done properly, it's not going to stay. So I'm not an engineer, but I do know that,
And the last thing was I think it's old communication lines. I showed you the video. There's a lot of loose hanging from the telephone poles, coils on the ground. A lot of communication line laying on the ground right there, just a block down from the library on Live Oak, right at the corner of Live Oak and Crescent. One of the citizens mentioned it to me, and it's been there so long, it's kind of gotten invisible to me. And when he mentioned it, it was like, yeah, you're right. It's been there for a long time. And since it is on one of our main stretches, have you been able to do anything since we talked about this during the agenda briefing?
No, sir. We will reach out to, I'll let them start with IT because it is comm. So we'll find out if it's Spectrum or CenturyLink or who it is. And then I'm sure we can put a work order in with them.
Okay, that's all I got. Thank you.
In terms of maintenance to the tennis courts, I'll get with staff. I'm sure it's on their schedule, but I'll get with them. I know we started spraying a lot last week, 331 South, 90 and downtown. So they're starting to go through and start spraying. So I'll get with them about that as well.
Thank you.
Toby, any comments?
Yeah, Mayor, I'll keep them short. First one, the lake testing. We appreciate the Sheriff's Office coming out and dive team coming and taking those samples for us. They did on Friday. So hopefully we'll be getting those back here relatively soon. So we do appreciate them coming out and helping us with that. Tree planting project was a USDA grant in coordination with the tree board, City Beautification Tree Board. I just want to thank the Public Works staff for getting out there and doing the irrigation and planting the trees. They did a great job on that. Tree board, extensions office, and the forestry also were part of that and helping out. Third, the Triumph agreement for the airport was approved 7-0 by the Triumph board, so that was good for the city. The effluent line, just a little bit. We will be, as we go through this process, we'll be coordinating with County Public Works. I did meet with their director, Buddy, right out there. The county's looking at repaving old landfill roads, so we're going to work with them closely on that, so we're not duplicating work or tearing up what they're doing, and also looking at maybe some potential more easements along that road to help out everyone. So we will be coordinating with the county on that. Spoke to county admin, hopeful that we'll be talking about the easement for the airport in East Live Oak or West Live Oak on their first meeting in July. I will make sure I speak to Admin Lamore and the interim county administrator about that, so hopefully we can get that moving as well. I'm sure we probably can rely on some others. Next, Born Learning Trails is a program through United Way. They reached out about the city and possibly doing that here in the city. And if you've been to Week Care, you've seen different paintings in the concrete and stuff like that. They reached out. We will here in the next month or so be going to a couple different parks and see what might be best for us and where to put that. So we hope there might be an improvement to city parks, a new feature with low cost to the city, coordination with them. So we'll update you on that as well. And then lastly, just on everyone's calendar, National Senior Citizens Appreciation Day, which is an event put on by our Life Original Senior Center, will be August 20th at the community center. So be sure to put that on your calendar. Last year was a big deal, and the mayor spoke there, and there was a lot of people there. So Susan does a great job, and we'll all be there to help. So that's it, man.
Thank you very much. All right, we will go to Glenn.
I'll say it again, Danielle, thank you, Kobe, and all the staff for the audit and all the hard work. Tremendous amount of hours that we all know you put in. You probably work on your way home too, don't you? But we appreciate you. And Kobe already mentioned the trees, but they planted satsumas, figs, Loquats, what was the other?
I believe olive.
Olive trees, that's right, olive trees. So they planted, and these were 6, 7 foot tall trees, so they've got a great start to survive. And they planted them at Pat Coble Parks, one down by the cemetery, and then the one over here by the practice ball fields of Little League Park. So they planted 15 in West End at that Pat Coble, and I think 5 over at the one by the cemetery. So they did a great job. They laid irrigation and they did a lot of work. They guys showed up and worked. They got it done. Thank you.
Mr. Dan? Any comment?
Not really. You know, maybe, okay, quick.
Mary said not really, it's already over.
I couldn't get talk quick enough.
So, y'all just tell me if you want to entertain this idea or if I need to quit bringing it up. But we've had a lot of problems before in the past with city managers. Okay, we used to go through city managers like toilet paper. But we didn't give up. We kept going into, you gotta keep going. So you had a bad experience with the airport committee. That was the first time you ever had an airport committee, and it wasn't a good experience. If we've got put some names together, I mean, some crackerjack people who have spent their life here, but life here in the aviation community, to help us on the airport, to get some suggestions, and it wouldn't be anything that they would be mandating to us. It would be a lot like the planning commission with the county. They can make suggestions all day long to the BCC, but the BCC doesn't have to take it. But it's good to get some professional input. I told you before I ran that if I was elected, that I'd be your biggest ally on that airport. There's some things coming down the pipe that I think will impress you. Would y'all think about maybe revisiting the idea of a airport committee?
I think everybody would think about it.
I think it would be appropriate to put it on the agenda so that we could actually have the discussion on the appointment of it. Put it on the agenda in the next meeting so they can actually talk about it. They can't give you up or down, and it's not really appropriate for them to give consensus tonight with it not being on the agenda either.
Okay, I'm done now.
All right. Todd Spencer.
Again, thank you for Danielle and Kobe and all the finance team for all the hard work on the audit. That is huge. That really is huge. Yeah, I'm good, Mr.
Amy?
I too reiterate again, it is a huge monument that we've achieved right now. And I also want to thank Miss Sarah for being here in the audience because 4th of July is coming up. If everybody hadn't signed up for the parade, please do so. And thank you, Sarah, for how many years now? 31 years of putting together
This will be, I think, 35 or 6.
30, I think you said 36. So 36 years of 4th of July fireworks. So thank you very much. That's all I have.